Welcome to a new episode of the Creative Industry Insight podcast. I'm your host, Bobby. Today, we welcome editor Nena Erb ACE, who joins us to talk about their work on Wonder Man. Nena will talk us through getting the right balance within the edit between the emotional and comedic elements of the show. Please be warned about heavy spoilers in this episode. Now let's jump into the conversation with Nena. Hi, Nena. Thank you for joining me today.
Oh, thank you so much for having me.
We're here to talk about this first series of Wonder Man that came out recently on Disney. It came out this year, on Disney Plus. Just want to give a quick shout out as well before we start to Emily, who's helped organize this interview. So shout out to Emily. Thank you so much for setting this up. But yeah, jumping back to the project, how have you found the reception to the show and your work on it?
I am pleasantly surprised. I honestly didn't. This is so different from anything Marvel's done. I truly didn't know how people were going to receive it, and so far, I think I've gotten more emails from people I haven't heard from in years saying that they love the show. So I'm pleasantly surprised and thrilled that it's resonating with people.
I think once you get like the emails from people, that's when you know that we're coming on to something here, and people are kind of enjoying it. And I think as well, like the sort of shift in like what Marvel is doing in terms of like doing something that's a little bit more human rather than a blue beam in the sky, and you kind of you're seeing like a whole different sort of side and storytelling. And I feel like as well, it's like cheating a little bit because you get to tell this story, but it's with like the cape of Marvel, and like that's how like certain things can get made, that you're kind of like secretly putting these stories in. Hopefully Kevin Feige's not listening to this and being like, I've been had here. They pulled a caper on me.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's different, and I love the performances and the story that's being told. But going back to the beginning, how did the project come about for you, and what made you want to take it on?
I had met some of the post studio execs, John Goldsmith and Chris Russell, back in 2020 in a general meeting, and we kind of hit it off. And they kind of kept in touch with me throughout the years, asking me if I was available, and timing never worked out, but this time it did work out. So they sent me the script, I read it, and immediately fell in love with the story because it was so different and so refreshing. And and it's all about identity, and that's like stuff I'm really, really fascinated about. And everything I work on, I try to make sure that I can connect with it on a very human level, and this I could definitely connect with it. So I was excited to meet with them, and I'm very fortunate that they chose me, and and yeah, it was a fantastic time.
I think it was all. I know it feels like a lot of times when I talk to guests, it's always about timing. Oh, excuse me. It's all about timing when you're talking to people and jobs, and how sometimes something doesn't work, and then other times it does, and then it's also, it feels like that when you get given a project, it's like, this is exactly what I've been looking for to be doing, because this speaks to me on so many different levels. But I think as well, like when you read the script and you know that like, yep, this is what I want something to work on. But as an editor, once you have a script and you're reading it, do you ever do any breakdowns to what you might think this how the scene might play out, or do you go in with a fresh set of eyes when you get the dailies and then sort of compare to the script to what's been captured on the day?
I usually read the script many times, just so I can kind of like have the dialogue in my head when I'm watching dailies. But I don't do any like official breakdowns. Maybe just like a one-liner of like what the scene's about, so I know going into it. And I just watch the dailies and see where it takes me, and like see what I feel in my gut when I'm watching it. What's making me laugh, what's making me cry, and what's making me angry, what's that kind of thing. So yeah, I kind of just let the dailies tell me what it wants.
Okay, because I think it's always like because when you're reading scripts, just like when you're reading a book, you kind of have a image in your mind and how like things are playing out. Um, I think sometimes if you're reading, I'm sure it's probably the same with a script, but when you read a book that's been adapted, you can't, you already have like the actors' images in your mind. And because you've got someone like Sir Ben Kingsley coming back in his role, you kind of already have his idea of like what his voice might sound like. So when you're reading his lines, you can picture what he's like. But
Yeah.
then I can imagine that's quite fun as well, just thinking like, okay, and then getting the footage and being like, oh, this is kind of how I thought it would play out a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't know anything about the Wonder Man character, so that was new to me. So I didn't really know like what they were going to do with the storyline. But yes, Sir Ben is brilliant as Mandarin or as Trevor Slattery, and so yeah, I definitely had his voice in my mind. And Yaya, I think I watched Watchmen, and I think he's brilliant as well. So I kind of knew what he was about, but again, the Wonder Man story is completely new to me, so I truly didn't know what to expect. And I was just really excited to see what they did with it on the set. It was everything, the pacing and the tone was all so grounded and relatable. And Yeah, and it's just performances were just so great.
I think as well, like when I guess if you don't know the character, that in a way, it's probably quite fun to discover him in the edit rather than having a preconceived notion of, oh, I've been a fan of the comics, of the stories, oh, I love this run, I love that run. To when you're going into something a bit more blind, you can kind of put your stamp on it and sort of add your spice to the stew rather than sort of thinking about, I don't know, your childhood and the nostalgia of it all. Because I think that's something that, especially now when you have so many different like video games and comic books and people are fans of it, it's like, or is that in the back of your mind when you're shooting or when you're editing?
Yeah, fortunately, there was nothing for me to base off of, so I got to approach it fresh and kind of just yeah, it was really great. I mean, I'll be honest, like I was a little nervous because I thought, okay, well, this is unfamiliar territory for me. I don't do a lot of superhero projects, and this is the first one. And granted, it's not, the stories are much more human based, and like Simon doesn't want to be a superhero. He's not trying to save the world. He just wants a callback. So I know that's like all he wants. He wants to be seen, and I mean, who can't identify with that, right? We all want to be seen and understood. So that was kind of like the thing that I latched onto, and how I approached all my scenes, and make sure that you know the performances were true, they felt true. And also it was interesting too because he's an actor playing an actor, right? So it was like having to kind of like figure out like, okay, when he's acting or auditioning, like what are those performances like? What is the tone of that versus like the tone of the show? So that was an interesting experiment for me to kind of play around with.
I feel like there's a bit of like an inception thing of like an actor within an actor on an act, trying to be another actor sort of thing, and it's
Yeah.
quite, it's quite a funny sort of like the side to it. But how would you go about striking the tone and balance in the edit between the humor, but also that seriousness about Simon wanting a callback? Because I can imagine that it's a very fine line that you can either go one way or the other, and that if you play it out in the wrong way, it just might not work.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a tricky thing. The comedy and drama, it's all about timing, right? I mean, it's really easy to say that comedy wants snappy cuts, but you also can't rush it because if you rush it past, you're going to undercut the joke, right? And so I think I find that to be really true to each emotion is just to not be afraid of it. Like when it's funny, you let it be funny. And when it's tense, you kind of marinate in that for a little bit. So for me, it's all about the rhythm of the edit. That's what's going to signal like the shift from something funny to something serious or something serious to something funny. Traditionally, if I'm just cutting like a half-hour comedy or something, it's about the setup and the punchline. For this, it was more about building up the pressure of each scene, and then the punchline or the joke is kind of like the release into comedy, right? So, like for example, Simon calls his mother and finds out that the reporter's already talked to his brother Eric, and he's like in a panic because Eric disapproves of his lifestyle, thinks he will amount to nothing, thinks it could potentially expose him and his powers, and that would just completely destroy him. So he's just losing his mind right now. And once he goes up to Kathy, Kathy's like, "Oh, and I talked to your ex-girlfriend too." And it's like, that slowly turning up the tension and the pressure. And then it was so interesting because in the dailies, he gave us a lot of different performances. And the one that we went with was so hilarious. Like when I watched it, I just started laughing because the way he says, "Oh, cool." Like his heart just dropped. And he's like, "Crap, I'm dead." But then the way he covers with that performance was just so funny. And it was exactly what we needed to get into the next scene because, the next scene starts kind of lively and light and, kind of funny. And so it was perfect. When I saw that, I was like, that's got to go in there. That's our bridge. And so it was kind of like just making sure the pacing was different and just understanding when to kind of release that pressure. So I was kind of playing around with that a lot.
Yeah, and I reckon as well, like there's so, as you said, like there's different takes of like the actors and how they're performing. Again, that been quite cool to be able to watch because that could be like, if we want to make it more funny, we could use take 3, but if we want to make it a bit more serious, we could use take 2. But then also there's so much that they're probably conveying in their eyes, and yeah, Simon's eyes, oh God, they could be so sad at times when he's just there, and you could just, you kind of like, you feel really sorry for him, but it's just so well done.
Yeah, like that scene in the trailer, right? When he hears that Trevor's betrayed him.
Yeah, and it's just, I don't know how he does it. Like, how do you make your eyes so sad? Like, I can make him expressive and like really big and cartoony, but not like puppy dog sort of eyes, or just that sort of like, man, how could it be like, how could a bad luck happen to me yet again?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Yeah, he's brilliant. Really, really brilliant. And the two of them together, him and Sir Ben, the chemistry is so, so great. I could just watch them.
I
Not
know,
even
and like I would love to watch just random dailies and like if they were like improving or not as well, or if they were, went off script, or if they were like really serious, or like, can we make this even funnier, and how can we like just amp it up, so stuff like that.
Yeah, yeah. They didn't really improv that much. Sir Ben he pretty much nailed it. He would give us a handful of performances and he nailed it every single time. And there's really no bad take. And I don't know how that was possible. So yeah, so there was not a lot of improving, but the two of them just were great together. They would give us different levels, like so we can take it a little more serious if you want. But we have to be really careful though. Like we don't want to tip into like too earnest and too syrupy. So because this is still a Marvel property, you don't want it to turn into like a Lifetime movie or something.
Yeah, exactly. And I think there's always even though it's slightly different to what's happened before, you still need to keep it in that same sort of range and tone of
Mhm.
what's come before and what the humor's like going to be, or just even how the story's told, because episodes are quite short as well for like a TV set show, because of what they're trying to show in this in each episode, which kind of leaves you wanting more as well, because usually I'd say like what you would say like average is like 45 minutes now. If it's on like on being broadcast, maybe an hour because you need the ads and whatnot. But here it's like you're in, out, you're enjoying it, and you just want to kind of continue the story and move it along. And I think with that human aspect as well, yeah, it helps a lot.
Yeah, yeah. We don't overstay our welcome, that's for sure. But yeah.
And because we're talking about timings, was there always an idea that it would be about 35 minutes per episode, or was it something that kind of came along later on whilst you were doing the edit?
I was not involved in the discussion early on, but I think the scripts were always around the same pages for a 30-minute episode, maybe 35. Occasionally there would be some that are a little longer and some that are a little shorter. It just kind of depends. But yeah, I think they never really intended for it to be hour, as far as I'm aware. But I don't know. They were in development and for a long time, and I was not privy to those conversations. So.
Okay. Now, I'm just curious because sometimes I think I was speaking to one editor when they were working on one of their shows, and it would be the episode length was like just shy of an hour, but sometimes they would have footage that would be, mounting up to about an hour and 20 minutes, and
Mm-hmm.
you think like, wow, you need to cut half an hour out of that. Good luck.
That does happen a lot. That happens a lot. But I think these were pretty tight. Yeah, I actually just finished a series that were like they're supposed to be hour-long episodes, but once you get into it and you find out like, okay, this is not working or this is working, but this will work better if we lose that other part. And eventually the episodes became shorter. So and then sometimes they're longer. So it just kind of depends on what the story needs, right? So we're all here to service the story.
Yeah, 100%. And I think as well, there's you could probably get lost in it a little bit because because you're sitting there going through it each day,
Hmm.
and sometimes you'll have dailies from the day before, or you're working on another scene, or you've got your assistant editor setting up something else that you could kind of play around with the length, and even sometimes have maybe you don't or maybe we really need this information in episode 3 because it's going to set up something in 7, or actually take it out completely because it's just not relevant. um
Hmm.
but I guess that comes down to sort of instinct of what's right and what's needed for the scene, but then also discussions with the different directors and showrunner on the show as well.
Yeah, yeah, it definitely does. My first cut is always everything that's in the script. And if they continue to improv one specific thing over and over and over again, I'll have alts ready for them so they can see the different, jokes, if that was the case. And yeah, but in this one, it just felt like everything was pretty tight. We didn't really lose much. And they really, really hammered the stories out well before they went into production. And it just was, yeah, it just flowed. I feel like I got really lucky and, came into like a perfect project.
I think as well that there's probably so many, I don't want to say hoops, but like probably thing like what is it when they I don't want to say hoops jump through, but like the in athletics, hurdles that they need to jump,
Mhm.
get stuff made, but then also, is it going to be in line to what they're doing before, and how can they really fine tune the scripts or really push through with the story, especially if it's in this case 8 episodes long. Like how long do you want to spend in certain areas? And I feel like especially like episode 3 feels a bit like a bottle episode in a way, because you're
Mhm.
stepping away from the Hollywood life and you're going to somebody's normal life and talking to them about what they were like as a kid and how Trevor's trying to extract more from other people,
Yeah,
um, in a humorous fashion.
yeah, that's one of my favorite episodes because I just really felt like I could identify with so much in that episode with the, familial expectations and like always feeling like you're not quite living up to what they want you to do. And, the cousins kind of like trying to understand Simon's crazy day. Like, what, you had a acting lesson and an audition? That's a full week. What? So it was, a lot of it was very, uh, relatable for me and very, very fun to cut and very fun to like make sure that all the different cultural aspects of the Haitian culture was, front and center. So hopefully the Haitian community felt seen.
Because I felt like I felt quite seen in that episode, because I come from Eastern European background. So it's like, what do you do? It's like, oh, work in transport. It's like, where's that on the set? And it's like, we're not nowhere near the set. Trailers are outside. We just make sure people get to and from work.
Which is important. It's very important.
Yeah, 100%. But it's more that like people don't understand what you do, or why do you need to get up early?
Right.
No way could surely you don't start till 8, and it's like, yeah, and the rest and everything else.
Yeah. And can they drive themselves? No.
Yeah.
Why do you have to drive them? Yeah.
It's like, is there not self-drive cars? What's going on? But I think as well, like as an episode, it's like stepping away from sort of glitz and glamour and having that sort of it like expands Simon's world so much more. And as an audience, you kind of think like it's not just the struggles of getting a call back and the acting side, but it's also the family side of it. And there's always a successful brother, and he's always around to help, but you're never here. But it's okay. But he'll help out. Look at this new kitchen that he's done. Oh, look at this wine fridge.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh man.
And then you go and destroy it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, selfish.
The episode's very interesting because I think it helps the audience realize how important or why the role of Wonder Man is important to him. Because if you learn how close he was with his dad, and then to learn that his dad died early, and that's kind of like when he started feeling lost and like he didn't belong even in his own family. So I thought that was a really, really fascinating way to kind of let people peek into him as a person rather than this quirky guy who has like a lot of like methods, when he's like on set. So it kind of humanized him a little more for me. So I kind of really made sure that all those things like resonated when I was doing my cut, and that there was a lot of subtext that kind of helped tell that story.
Yeah, and it's I think as well, like you give a different side to the superhero story, whilst everybody, well, not everybody, but there's way that people have kind of let down like their dads, so then they need to make up to them in a certain way. It's like I know it's a completely different property as DC, but like Batman, for example, like Christopher Nolan's one is because Bruce Wayne wanted to leave the opera because he was scared, so then his mum and dad get shot, or Spider-Man with Uncle Ben, and how he didn't in the Sam Raimi ones, as they didn't stop the robber killing him. Yeah, and it's like that sort of stuff. Whilst here, it's more you understand. Maybe it's just a smaller scale, but it feels like more of a human element because your parents are the people that probably introduce you to certain art and films and music, and that's how you connect with them in a way, because they're obviously an authoritative figure in your life, but then you realize actually they like certain things that I didn't think they like. So like my dad took me to see Star Wars when I was like 6 or 7 years old.
Oh wow.
When they were like re-released in the cinema. I think we saw Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi. I don't know why we didn't see A New Hope, but whatever. I never asked him.
Yeah.
It's like those sort of things, and like how you build connections with family that way.
Yeah. And I think another thing that's interesting too with Simon's character is that he kind of lives in between two worlds, right? It's like superhero, like I have powers world and no one can find out about it, to where like, but I want to be seen because I'm an actor. So it's like, that dichotomy is very, very interesting.
Yeah, and like even balancing it in the edits as well. It's like kind of like a Jekyll and Hyde figure in a way, but not in like a crazy way. It's just a way of trying to get by and live your life.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. You want to be you, but will you be accepted if you're really truly being you,
Yeah, exactly. And I think it plays on it well, and in an interesting manner as well. What I'm curious to know about as well is that you're working with different directors, but then also the showrunner. So in your case, you're working with James Consult.
Yep, consult.
Yeah, perfect. For episodes 3 and 4, and then you worked with Stella. I want to say McGee.
I think it's Maggie, but I'm not sure. I should ask her.
I'm sure we'll get an email being like, "You got my name wrong."
Yeah.
But then also you'll be working with the showrunner Andrew Guest. When it comes to the edit and some of the creative decisions, how do you guys go about making sure that you're all singing from the same hymn sheet, but then also everybody gets their say creatively?
Well, let's see. When I started for episode 3 and 4, I actually started a week late. There's just some clerical error, and by the time I started on day 1, I was like, wait, I have 4 days of dailies? Okay. So I guess there's no tone meeting, there's no table read. All right, let's just jump in. So I basically, I texted James. I was like, hey, do you have time this weekend? I know it's a weekend, it's family time, but I would love to just kind of talk through the script with you and see what you have in mind. And he was very kind, and we had a long chat about episode 3 and 4 and kind of the things that he had in mind going into it, what his ideas were. And so just having that information in my head when I approached the cut for 3 and 4 was important, because 4 is so different too. It's like a whole different, complete departure from a series that's already a departure from Marvel. And but fortunately with 7 and 8, with Stella's episodes, we got, I think I was involved with prep for that one pretty extensively, and because we had a long hiatus with the strike, and so when we came back, they were able to bring me back during prep, and I was able to go to the tone meeting, table reads, and all that fun stuff. So that was really helpful. And Stella, I worked with before on Insecure, so I know that she doesn't really like to work off of the editor's cut. So I'll still do my editor's cut, but she's not going to work off of it. She just wants to go through and watch dailies with me, and we cut it together. So I was like working very, very quickly with her, because it's not like a feature where you have 10 weeks, you have 4 days. So we were able to, fortunately, use that time to cut the episode how she wanted.
Okay, cool. I think that again, it's really interesting to know how people work and what they're doing, especially when you're working on something where there's sort of different creatives and how people work and want to do things. I think it's interesting with Stella sitting there going through like that cut, because I can imagine it feels like the head teacher standing over you whilst you write your essay in a way, but obviously in a lot more polite way, because it's obviously different between they're there with their input, but then also you're kind of looking at it afresh to see how can we play this out and sort of fixing it in real time rather than getting notes, and having those discussions.
Yeah.
It'd be great to be a fly on the wall on something like that as well.
Oh, that was fascinating. Especially since, this was also her first Marvel project. And I don't know if she's aware, but Marvel loves to take big swings and just kind of throw an idea out and go in a totally different direction just to see if it could be better. And not for any reason at all. Not, there's no conspiracy or anything, but just to see. And so that actually ended up happening with 7 and 8. So I had to basically recut everything very quickly as well. And then just because they just wanted to go in a different direction completely. So that was so what you ended up seeing was actually a little closer to the vision of Destin, Andrew, and Brian, the 3 showrunners.
I think that's also knowing that you've got things that are going to change a little bit. You're kind of kept on your feet as well. That must be a little bit nerve-wracking, but then also kind of exciting. You're on the edge, but then also it's oh, should it be like this? Should it not be like that?
Yeah, there are times when I second guess myself, but most of the time I actually really enjoy the notes process. I don't know, maybe I'm insane, but I kind of like it because it's all just experimentation for me, and seeing where the story can go. And no idea is a bad idea. You just try it because you never know until you put it together. And then sometimes even if it's a bad idea, it might spark a better idea off of the bad idea. So I really like that process. And so for me, it was, I mean, realizing that Marvel works that way too, just like if they want to play around and just see how, things can change. Um, that was like a perfect fit. I had no idea that he could do that.
Yeah, there's probably some sort of misconception that they're like, no, you got to do it this way, the Marvel way. That's it. There's like you're you're just you're just a cog in the machine. But as you said, you don't try it, and you don't know what you're gonna do and how you're gonna play with it. Um, especially with like creativity, also when you have so many different takes, and how one moment, yeah, looks, this scene could actually work, but then you have to sit down and say, actually, the tone doesn't work because it doesn't match the previous episode. So now
Hmm.
let's go back to what we've got and try it again.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And it was helpful that we all screen our episodes together, so we were able to see kind of the overall arc of the home season. So,
And when you have those screenings, obviously you've got yourselves there and other editors. Do you guys how much do you guys discuss amongst yourselves about your episodes and how you're trying to sort of create the over arc between all of them? Because even though it's 8 episodes, sometimes with TV shows, 8 episodes that makes it just feel like it's like one big film.
yeah, it can, right? Especially when they're half an hour long for each episode. Um, yeah, we would discuss that we would screen it with the producers and with the studio, and there was always a notes discussion afterwards, and then we would kind of separate to our own cutting rooms and kind of implement changes. And music is a whole thing, but fortunately, Marvel has a music team that they use, so that was one team that would help both of us. And so like cohesively, the sound was very very it had a vision. And but yeah, it was great. Like I really like that process. I've never done it that way before, where you screen everything with the other with the rest of the team. But I found it very very eye-opening, because you can immediately see, okay, well, that take I chose yesterday is not going to work now. Or like, ooh, yeah, okay, that's really going to work well. Like whatever it is, it was great. Like I really loved it.
I think as well, like having that extra help helps in the long run, but then also allows you to see your different perspectives and play
Mhm.
out how you want to, or I guess how they want the overall tone to be. But then also, I don't want to say question, but you kind of think, actually, this worked yesterday, but actually it doesn't work. Let's try take two on this, or maybe we could just cut it a little bit uh, quicker so that it builds up a bit more tension or not or whatnot.
Yeah, yeah. It's dailies are an interesting thing. Like you think that it's one thing, but then when you put it together, it kind of becomes its own other thing that you kind of didn't expect, because it's all about what it's put up against, right? So it's a fascinating, almost a scientific process.
Yeah, it's kind of like even though you have the script in front of you and it's going to be whatever page 7 to 10 of that day, you still don't have context of like the whole episode in a way,
Hmm.
as in like you don't have the visual context, should I say, because whatever's written in the stage directions could be completely different to what the actor might do at the time,
Hmm.
or even play around a bit, or even use whatever's on set to help them in that scene, like make a cup of tea or something like that.
Yeah,
um, and how they sort of play out, or even if it's whatever the conversation between people, there might be like an additional pause because it's something dramatic, or pause because they're pondering the next decision. Yes, I can imagine it's quite fun, but then also a bit of a minefield at the same time.
yeah. There's a lot of options for sure. I watch everything, like from the very first frame to the very last frame before they roll the slate, and then just literally until the camera's turned off. So because sometimes I've even found shots in between resets when they don't cut and they just do multiple takes within a take. I found some gems in there, and whether it's like just kind of reactions, or maybe they're responding to something, but it sounds like they're responding in the moment, but they're not. But it's like that's exactly the piece that you need. I know it doesn't make any sense right now, but but yeah, so there's a lot to watch, and it can be you can get lost in it very easily.
Yeah, and I think with the resets, it's like, again, Inception, take with minute take.
Yeah.
But it's the it's like how they continue on, and I think if no one makes a note saying that was like a reset within the take, you might just miss it completely.
Mm-hmm.
And you could miss whatever magic they're doing. But then also it's like they're already at like a certain percentage in their performances. Like now they know where the bar is. They've got to try set it even higher as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, it's
Um,
amazing what you find in between those resets. I mean, I've had times where I was like, oh, I wish this is on a different show, but I wish I had a reaction where they're putting on a fake smile and then it just drops. And well, that didn't happen in the tape, but it certainly happened as soon as they didn't yell cut, but they're like, okay, let's do that again. And it's like, so the smile falls. And then they roll into a reset at the same take. So like, oh, well, there you go. I can use that. But if they yelled cut, I wouldn't even have it.
yeah, exactly. And
Yeah.
those little moments, just like those little nuggets that you get to find, they work out really nicely. I've got a couple of questions left. So something they mentioned earlier was about identity and how identity plays a part in the show. As an editor, how do you go about conveying your identity in the way that you edit, not just this show, but also shows past and present that you have worked on?
Mm. Well, I try to pick projects that I love, because you spend so much time with the material and at work that, like, if you don't love it, then you're not putting yourself into it. And it depends on. I'm trying to think. Like, I think everything should mean something. Like for example, in Insecure, there is a scene where Issa Rae picks up the guy who misses the bus, and so there are these transitionals, interstitials in between scenes. And I just thought, wouldn't that be funny if every single scene that shows you the city of LA, there's a bus in it, and it's always driving past them. So that's like kind of how I put like my little stamp on that one. And then sometimes it's, other things like in episode 3 in Wonder Man, there's a scene where the mom, Martha, is washing dishes. Well, she's washing the dishes and she puts it on in the dishwasher when it's clean. That's something that Asians do a lot. Like, they don't actually use a dishwasher. They use it as a fancy like dish rack. And I've since realized that, oh, I guess the Haitians, also do the same thing. So I just wanted to make sure that that shot was always in a wide so you could see it, and hopefully the people that know will clock it, and people, that don't will think it's just odd. So that's like kind of like how I put like little sprinkles of myself through my work. There's like little Easter eggs here and there.
So my mum does the same thing with the dishwasher thing as well. So it's like I feel like it must be definitely not a British thing. It's definitely not an American thing. It's other than that, yeah. Because like I don't know why. I just don't know why. It's like cool. You do you. I'm not going to say
Yeah.
anything. You're my mum. Whatever. Just go
Yeah.
about our day. But yeah, it's quite interesting, those little tidbits, and not just like in the performances, but then it's like I bet you laugh to yourself when you see that, because you think it's
Yep.
exactly what happens in that's exactly what's happening in my life. And what, like, really, like, okay, I definitely need to put this in and add that in. But then
Mm-hmm.
also, as you said, like working on stuff that mean things and have like a I can imagine that, like, there's, because so much gets made now, and there's probably something out there for everybody in terms of how they can relate to what's being presented to them on screen, or how just even like, I don't know, reality TV, watching stuff where just you can switch your mind off. Yeah, that's a really good way to be able to choose what you want and what you can work on, and then add your own little flavor to it. And then, as you said, putting those Easter eggs in.
Yep.
Um, especially like maybe you could have an in-joke with your friends or even your family, and they can see that and they're like, I see what you did there. I see what you did there.
I do have a friend that like has a little thing like that. Like with everything that she works in or on, she has, I think it's a phrase or something that she'll either kind of like throw in the walla or like put in a graphic in the sign somewhere. So like that's like her little stamp. It's like an inside joke with her and her friend. So I'm thinking like, huh, I should do something like that. But I think in yeah, I think in Joyride, I think I temped in the little girl's gasp at the park, and there just never was one that sounded like her. So I think mine stayed. Not because of me, but like just there was nothing else that fit better. So yeah, that was a very personal touch there.
Again, those little things and tidbits, and as you said, Easter eggs. I guess it's just a joy to be able to put those in and have that style and have those moments as well. But then also, if you watch it back, you're like, you kind of laugh to yourself because, like, yeah, I've stuck that in and no one said anything.
I know. I don't think I've ever said that out loud either. So I was like, oh, now that people hear this, they're gonna be like, wait, what? That's you?
Yeah, I know. We would redact the previous statement. Strike that off the record, please. And just to hit you up, my final question: is there anything that you want to add that I might have missed in my questions, or is there anything that you want to ask me?
Yeah. What inspired you to do this podcast?
It was boredom of lockdown.
Oh, okay.
I started it in lockdown because I work in film and TV. People I was working with, I knew were at home as well. So basically, it was like, I know you're not doing anything. Why don't we go talk about your work, talk about what you're doing, and yeah, people were really up for it and kind of went from there.
Great.
Yeah, it's interesting to talk to people who I've worked with before, but then also people who I've never met. So it's like talking to random McRandomson about their work and enjoying talking about their work and enjoying their work as well. And you
Yeah.
get kind of like a new appreciation in how things are done and decisions that people make, because sometimes you'll be watching something, you're like, oh, this is entertaining, but it's like actually there's certain elements that people are creating to sort of tell the story and really move it along and make it interesting as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Something that looks so simple could take like monumental effort.
Oh
And
yeah, 100%.
so, yeah. But no, I just really appreciate it because you cover cinematography, VFX, music, sound. I mean, all those aspects, and it's really, really fascinating. So I was like, huh, how did he come up with it? So,
Yeah, it was basically, I think it was also just as in a nicer sense, I'm never going to get the big A-listers or anything like that. So why not shine a light on all the people that act, there's the directors and whatnot, but it's like the army behind them that get things done and make these shows. And there's so many different aspects to people's work that it's just like really fascinating. And sometimes you'll be watching a show and you're like, huh, I wonder if that's a set build or location. But if it's a location,
mhm.
where did they find that? And how long did it take for them to dress it like that?
Right, right.
It would have been quicker to build it. It's like stupid stuff like that.
Yeah,
Like
yeah. No,
stupid thoughts
totally.
that you have like that. And like, is that the backlot? Is that not that?
Yeah,
Yeah, it's funny and interesting.
very cool. I just have one more question, if I may.
Go on, go on.
What's your snack of choice?
Uh, I like crisps or like potato chips.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think hula hoops are my favorite, like really salted ones.
Ooh, okay.
They're really nice. And then, yeah, I think I'll have to go for that.
Nice. Okay. I've heard about Tato's.
But
um, I've heard about Tato's. Tato's chips or crisps, they're called, right? The brand is called Tato's. I think they're from Dublin, maybe. But is that the brand that you're talking about?
no, I think mine ones are called hula hoops, but I
Oh,
don't
okay.
know. They could be a part of that brand. I have no idea. All I know is I devour them. So Yeah, absolutely love it. Love them. Always about 10:25 in the morning, I'll have my packet of hula hoops.
Well, there you go. Energy, fuel for the day, right?
Yeah, well, if anyone wants to poison me, they know how to poison me now. Nina, thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you for having me.
Wonder Man is streaming now on Disney Plus. Go out and watch Nina and her team's amazing work. Thank you again.
Thanks. Talk to you
Thank
later.
you. Take care. Bye bye. Thank you for listening. Please subscribe, rate, and review this podcast.